Joining me bright and early, we're here to talk about virtual MVPDs, and I'll actually let my panelists introduce themselves.
My name is Dwayne Benfield. I'm the general manager of PlayStation Vue, one of the virtual MVPDs. But speaking of the last presentation from the Diffusion Group, we're also the first to actually enter ATV 3.0. We actually saw that movement back in 2015 and launched with a la carte channels without a bundle. And I have already started bundling them. We bundle Showtime and Netflix, for example, for a discounted price. So we see that movement as well. And so we want to have our foot in that MVP space, but also the channel integration, which we do see well.
Hey, good morning. My name is Seth Van Sickle, and I oversee operations and customer experience for Sling TV.
I'm Andrew McCall. I'm the CEO of Philo.
Hi, I'm Stefan Vanning, and I'm a little bit of a last-minute ad. I'm the head of content programming for Xumo, which has been referred to as a virtual MVPD, but we think of ourselves as we're really an ad-supported OTT platform built natively into smart TV and OEMs, including mobile, and we're sort of a direct-to-consumer play, so a little bit different than everybody else up here, but happy to be here.
And again, I'm Michelle Castillo, I'm a senior reporter at Cheddar. I'm not John Steinberg, but I'll try to continue this panel and kick off with a really great conversation. I'm glad to have you guys all join us today. So we're hearing about cord cutting, and with 1.1 million subs were lost from cable to satellite in just the first quarter of 2019. You guys have talked a little bit about bundling, the advantage of putting together your services. You can discount TV significantly. What do you think are the competitive advantages for virtual MVPDs?
Sure, so I'll start. Here's one. First of all, they're largely cheaper. There's no hidden fees, no contracts. But it's the same content, but delivered without the challenges of the incumbent system. There's no set-top box. There's no ties to contracts like I mentioned, but there's a much better experience in terms of it's addressable. And so it's down to the user level, so you can actually customize and personalize the service to individual users with features that can't exist with an incumbent, for example. We do 4 simultaneous streams on an Apple TV. You just can't do that with a traditional set-top box.
Yeah, I think for us at Sling, it's really about the model. So we launched Sling with 14 channels, and today we've expanded that. We have just south of 700 channels. We also have 20 standalones, 40 add-ons and extras. We've got free content in front of the paywall today, over 100,000 on-demand assets, and really for us, it's been about providing choice and flexibility to our customer base. So trying not to recreate the same package that the traditional TV does, but really have a skinny bundle of the customers. If they want more sports or if they want more kids, they can add that content to what they're already paying for.
Yeah, I think that once you try a virtual MVPD, a streaming television service, you realize that pretty quickly that it is a really superior experience in a lot of ways to traditional TV. Dwayne mentioned price and other aspects, but just the ability to actually have the full kind of features and functionality of the TV service you're paying for available on any device you have, anywhere you go. Having an unlimited cloud-based DVR, it's sort of like TV with superpowers in a lot of ways.
For us, I think the competitive advantage is that we're not a subscription model, we're not a pay model. Everything is in front of the paywall. Our content lineup is a little bit different. Obviously, with MVPD services and virtual MVPD services, there's lots of MFNs and different content. So, for example, outside TV, we'll have a cable channel. They have their premium subscription model, and then they have Outside TV Plus, which is ad-supported, which streams on Xumo. So you still have a great breadth of content, but the competitive advantage is first that it's free. There's no barrier to entry. And the second part for Xumo is the way we natively integrated into OEM. So when you launch your LG Smart TV and you have LG channels and you activate it, immediately the 160 channels from Xumo populate an EPG, populate the television, and you're off and running with the different channels. So there's very little barrier to entry, and it's a free experience.
So we have 4 different offerings right here. Some free, some some subscription-based. But there was a recent Deloitte study that showed that there are 300 over-the-top options in the U.S. today, right now. And they surveyed a bunch of people, and 47% said they're growing frustrated at the growing number of subscriptions and services to watch their shows. Do you think we're reaching a saturation point where there's just too many services out there and not enough people to want to migrate away from cable and satellite?
Everybody's looking at me. That means I have to talk. I think you do reach a saturation point. I think, we'll probably talk about it more, but with Disney entering and with all the different sort of direct-to-consumer SVODs, and then the pay TV model, and then choices between Philo or Sling or YouTube TV, everybody kind of starts thinking, what do I need? But I think it's really driven by cost. I think that's what we've seen. And I think that's what's leading to sort of the cord cutting that you mentioned and everything else, is that consumers are not stupid about their wallets. And I think when you can put an antenna on a television and get your broadcast, and then sort of add on either a virtual MVPD with select skinny bundles that you like, or add on a free service like Xumo, where you have news and sports, entertainment and movies and everything else, and you start looking at that and you say, okay, well, this costs me $20 a month. I mean, just taking myself personally, I have ESPN Plus for soccer, I have Netflix, I have Amazon for delivery, and all of a sudden I'm going, why do I have this much? Why am I paying? I'm paying more than if I was just to get a cable bundle. So I think the saturation is not about choice as much as it's about price.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you've seen a explosion of different services and also different models for offering content, AVOD, SVOD, virtual MVPDs, and I think that that's really great for consumers because it allows them to kind of vote with their feet, and you will see consolidation. People don't want to have to switch between 50 different apps with 50 different logins and 50 different billing details. So, that's inevitable, but, I think that what's really positive now is that it's given a lot of different options that is opening up for consumers how, what kind of video experience they want, and that will ultimately, lead to the benefit of everybody.
Yeah, I think to Andrew's point, so there's there's too many from a consumer standpoint or from a distributor standpoint. I think from a consumer standpoint, choice is great, and there's a reason why there was over 500 channels in the incumbent bundles. But building off the theme from the previous presentation on app fatigue, our research shows that people are okay having 2 to 3 subscriptions. You get 4 or 5, that's when they actually it's too many. So one of the reasons we actually focus on View, making sure we re-aggregate those channels, and we see that happening. But it's also difficult for all these services, the 300 plus, to actually support an app ecosystem. It's expensive, so they're going to depend more and more on these virtual platforms, what I call TV 3.0, to actually distribute these all across channels and effectively rebundle or at least offer rebundling opportunities to consumers with a lot more choice and flexibility.
So I wanted to touch on a point that everyone kind of touched on, the idea of free ad-supported content. Just a few years ago, everyone was talking about consumers don't want ads in their experience, and we moved towards a subscription model where Netflix changed the name, binge viewing, the idea that you can watch something uninterrupted. But now we're moving back into the space, I feel, of ad-supported content. We have Amazon's IMDb Free Dive and their rumored expansion to more ad-supported services. You have Comcast, which is going to launch the NBCU app, and they're going to also have ad-supported services there. Why do you think we're going back towards ad-supported TV? Is it that the subscription model isn't sustainable without ads, traditional ads?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a few things. One, there tend to be these sort of trends that play out through the industry, and I think AVOD is definitely a big trend right now, and so there's a lot of experimentation happening there where people want to dip their foot in and see how that model works for them. From our perspective, I think that it makes a lot of sense if you think about how TV was, pre-cable. Everybody got their TV for free, ad-supported. over the air. Free is a compelling price point, and it's a great way to build massive scale. So I think that it's awesome to see moving back to that, especially considering the approach that many consumers are taking in terms of wanting to have a better value, lower cost for their entertainment options. I think ad-supported fits nicely with that.
How many people dislike ads in their content? How many people would put up with a few ads versus paying $10, $15 for their content? So, I mean, that's sort of where we are, right? At Xumo, we do dial back the ad load. We're about half that of traditional television. But it's also getting smarter, right? There's a whole track here on ad targeting and advanced advertising. And I think when you're getting served relevant ads to you, and it's not as disjointed with the content when you're sort of a lower ad load, then all of a sudden the experience becomes a lot better. And I think people are willing to put up with that because A, it's customized to them, B, it's not as intrusive, and C, free is great.
Yeah, I think the other interesting, the thing is that even for a service like ours, ad-supported is pretty essential. The economics just don't work without advertising on the part of both the programmers and us, the distributor. And actually, if you look at the data, most people actually don't skip the ads even when they have the ability to do it, which is really fascinating to us. So, I think that there definitely is strong support in the market for consumers saying, I want to pay a lower cost, and as a trade-off, watch advertising. I do think that options to have a ad-light or ad-free experience will grow over time. One of the advantages of a virtual service is that you can do things like have different versions of the content for different people based on how they're subscribing, and you can kind of flexibly build that into the UI. So I'm very confident that you'll see more of that in the coming years, where you could, and you're already seeing a little bit of it with options like AMC Premiere, where you can kind of buy a ad-free version of the marquee content on that network. And I think you're going to see more options like that pop up for people who want to avoid ads.
And I just to pick up on what Sebastian said, I really think it's our duty as distributors and also the programmers to make those ads more personal, so that they're not, so they are more relevant to the viewer watching them. Because ads will always serve a place as it's driving down the cost of television. But the more personal we make those ads, the more relevant to the user, the better that experience will be.
Do you think we're going to start seeing a majority ad-supported free content out there, or are we thinking we're going to have a rise in more subscription?
I think it comes down to the economics. I mean, some points being raised at the panel about the ads being relevant. It comes down to the CPMs. The advancements in advertising have led to much higher CPMs and targetability, which allows you to fund better content. So I think that's one reason you see movement in the ad-supported space, is you can actually now fund more quality content. We don't forecast anytime soon that you'll be able to fund Game of Thrones level content or NFL games. So I think those high premium, expensive rights will stay within a subscription environment for foreseeable future.
Touching on that point, do you think you need original content to stand out, or is it all about, as everyone was saying, the customer experience? Is it more important to have invest in user interface, or should you invest in that exclusive content?
As a virtual movie, I think it comes down to two big points. It's the value play, so the content for the price and the experience. We've invested heavily as View in both. We did experiment with some exclusive channels originally, but we actually found that it's more important to focus on the must-have channels and then invest heavily in the experience. We're the most deeply integrated into devices like Apple TV or in Amazon Fire, and we just find that pays off much more heavily than adding these channels or random content.
I think it depends a little bit on what your differentiating factor is. For us, we've said it's around aggregation and choice. For other providers that are doing original content great, that is their differentiator, and they'll continue to do that. So it's certainly a balance, and it really depends on the provider and where they want that differentiator to come from.
Yeah, I think we've always taken the approach where, like Dwayne, we want to build the best technology platform, the best user experience, And we actually kind of explicitly don't want to get into the business of creating original content because we feel like that sort of puts us in inherent competition with our programmers. And there's a lot of incentive then to sort of tweak the experience or to sort of self-deal to yourself and prioritize your own content. I mean, sort of look at Netflix for like a prime example of how this has played out. And we feel like over time, while it can have short-term benefits in terms of attracting people to the platform, it has long-term disadvantages in terms of creating a unified experience where people are going to be able to get everything they want to get, even if it's not your own original programming.
Yeah, and I spent my entire career creating, developing, and producing original content, and then switched to the dark side of platform distribution. And so I would have always been the one to say you have to have original content. That's the driving force of everything. And having spent the last 3.5 years at Xumo, it's what Andrew's saying. It's about putting a collective of content that people want and making sure they can get it where they want it, as opposed to sort of these one-off, which are, by the way, not just expensive to make, but super expensive to market because it comes down to discovery and usage. So the economics of it don't make sense for a platform like ours right now. Not to say we won't ever do it, or not to say we won't ever experiment with exclusive channels or that sort of thing. But right now it's really about a unified experience and making sure that people can find the content that they want to find where they're using devices.
So I wanted to touch on content again. I talked to you a little bit yesterday, Andrew, about the idea of not having sports or local news on Philo. And so I wanted you to explain a little bit more about that decision. You guys do have one of the cheapest skinny bundles on the market. It's only $20 a month, but you are taking away some of the content that a lot of people say is the driver for people still watching appointment and live television, sports, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think our approach is driven out of a few things. First, we wanted to create a really high value package, and we wanted to offer it at a sustainable price point, so that we wouldn't be forced to, basically get people to sign up and then continually raise the price significantly to make the margins work. And we identified that that was going to be easier to do with the entertainment lifestyle focus that we have. Sports drives the lion's share of the cost, and it's also an increasingly large percentage of the cost, sports and broadcast, every year. So that was part of what drove our decision. The other part is just that the package of content we offer, entertainment, lifestyle, knowledge-focused networks, there just was no way to get those channels without paying a huge premium for live sports. And about half of cable consumers say sports is not their primary reason for subscribing. Many people who don't want to pay the high cost of sports have already cut the cord. Cord cutters are much more likely to be people who are trying to reduce cost and don't care about live sports. Sports are great. People who want to pay for it will pay for it. But to have everybody else sort of subsidizing the cost creates a kind of unsustainable system. So, we wanted to make a new option for those people. Over half of our subscribers have no TV service at all before signing up for Philo. They are not getting anything, virtual MVPD or no linear TV provider at all, which is huge. We feel like we're one of the only people who's truly growing the market rather than just simply share shifting people from one service to another. And we feel really great about that approach. I think that ultimately at the root of it is back to this issue of consumer choice, which is that bundling has a lot of benefits to consumers. You get more for less if you do the bundling smartly, but you need to put packages of content together that make sense together. And forcing everyone to pay, $15 a month for ESPN into their cable bill, is not great if you never watch that channel. That's a lot of money I'm paying every month for a channel that I may not watch at all. So it's really driving a lot of our approach.
I was going to say, that's the choice. Contrary to Andrew, that we are focusing on sports. In fact, we carry more sports than any of the major virtual MVPDs, including the league nets like NFL Network and MLB TV, etc. And broadcast, but broadcast, we actually just launched another 15 today, taking us up like 656 broadcast stations. So it is about our focus, and we are making sure that we deliver that best sports experience for that user. But I think to Andrew's point, having the choice and flexibility is going to be key moving forward, which is also why we're bringing the a la cartes into TV without any kind of money.
And you mentioned you can add on sports to Sling. What do you guys see?
Yeah, I mean,
music behavior?
our approach has always been we want some sports in our package, and we want the key sports networks in our package. But for heavy sports users, we want you to be able to add an add-on. So if you take NBA, for example, right? NBA finals going on, you're going to get most of the games within Sling Orange or within Sling Orange, and you can add sports extras. You'll get NBA TV. That'll give you the entire NBA playoffs. But we also have options like NBA League Pass, if you're a heavy NBA user, or even NBA Team Pass if you follow one NBA team that you want to watch every one of their games. So it's all about giving them choice. But back to previous points made, we're very cognizant of not adding all of the sports to our base service, which would increase our rate significantly. To keep that bundle skinny, it's all about a balance between the two.
So I'm not a cord cutter, and one of the reasons is sports for me. I still like watching my sports. But I see your point that we should have a choice to decide what we want to buy, and maybe that would be a key indicator for me if I could have the ability to buy specific teams or specific sports and watch those games. But so do you think the need in the market right now is even skinnier bundles? Do you think we'll ever get to that point where you just pay $1.99 and just get Los Angeles Chargers games?
I think it'll be interesting. I mean, obviously, content is aggregated too at the programmer level, and a lot of this contract is held within programmers, and that makes it really difficult. But I think if you want to simplify this space and where TV is going, that's the type of choice we need to get to, and that's the type of choice that we try to build Sling TV on, and that's the principle that we stand behind today. Is around that customer choice. From that standpoint.
I mean, I think that people sort of vilify the bundle, but I think if you actually get right down to it, when most consumers complain about the pay TV bundle, it's really an issue with the price, not with the content. What they're really saying is that I see a lot of channels that I don't watch, and I want to pay less. So if you got rid of those channels, I would pay less. And I think that first of all, that's not necessarily true. We think there's a lot of economic benefits to bundling, but there's also user experience benefits to bundling too. I don't think actually anyone wants to go and choose every channel they want to watch a la carte. It's really overwhelming to a consumer to have to pick everything individually and figure out this whole array of options, and whether each channel is worth $1.99 or $2.99 or $5.99 or whatever they're all individually priced at. It would be a terrible user experience. Bundling is great in that it simplifies things a lot. Everyone, pays the same price for one or a small number of packages, and they all get a really broad selection of content that hopefully meets all their needs. So I'm really I'm not bullish on the bundle changing hugely. I think that it will, remain. But like I said, I think that there are cases where you may want a small number of bundles that could be mixed and matched in a more flexible way than you have today. Today, with a traditional pay TV provider, you generally just have sort of like small, medium, large options. Whereas if you go with a virtual provider, already in the market, you kind of have the option for like entertainment, lifestyle, knowledge package like us, or a sports focused package like View or Sling or DirecTV Now, sports and broadcast, and you can kind of mix and match those things together if you're willing to use two different services. And I think that solutions to bundling that are more along those lines are ultimately much more likely where things are going.
I think to build off what Andrew was saying, there is a reason why bundling works across all industries. As Happy Meal is an example, because economic theory supports that there are efficiencies in the bundle. So we do also believe there'll be bundles, especially given sports rights are tied up with the major programming groups for another decade or so. And so for us, we've been in the market 4 years now at price points ranging from 30 to 50, with various mixes and matches of content and broadcasters. And it's about dialing in that value proposition. To Andrew's point, if you get it right in terms of offering consumers the right amount of content for the price they feel is fair, I think it's a win-win. So I think that using data to kind of really hone in on what that perfect combination is a focus for us.
Yeah, just two more quick points on that. If you look at the music industry, it's completely bundled. You pay one price for Spotify or Apple Music, and you get access to every piece of music basically from the past 100 years, more or less. You don't subscribe to each individual music label separately. on Spotify. It would be a nightmare if you had to do that. And the other point is that, there's really no way to get away from bundling. Netflix is a bundle, actually, if you look at it, and no one sort of suggests that Netflix should break up its bundle and offer, their original separately from the different programmers that are on their platform, because everyone kind of realizes that people who subscribe to Netflix feel like it's a good package of content at a fair price, and they get a lot of value from it. And so they, don't view it as the sort of bundling that occurs as a negative. It's viewed as a positive. And so I think it's finding that balance.
Also, I think it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning about the amount of choice and whether it's price point or choice. But the data that we see in terms of people coming home, turning on their TV, surfing through 14 channels, 4 up, 4 down, whatever it may be, there's a lean back quality to that you get that people don't want to sort of have to choose all the time, right? It's the knock on Netflix that you I've heard Hulu say that if somebody spends 30 seconds, on their platform without making a choice, that they're gone for a long time, right? And it's just too many thumbnails. So a bundle package where you can just easily navigate up and down with a remote and kind of find something that you want to watch is actually a better user experience in a lot of cases. Everybody wants to give everybody so many different choices and make them choose, and some people just want to turn it on and surf and find something that's entertaining.
Speaking of navigation, the linear channel guide that we're still seeing to still be started on. Apple News unveiled their big, innovative app that was supposed to introduce all the different services into one place, but it's still a linear channel guide. Go back to it. Do you think that's still the most effective way to deliver content to the user, or how else can we innovate on that experience?
We've done a lot of testing in terms of thumbnails, individual channel logos, and EPG. And in fact, on LG channels, we overlay the EPG with all of the 160 Xumo delivered digital channels with the antenna channel, so it's OTT and OTA blended together in a single EPG. And people still use it. It's you see it through the usage as well. You just really can't unlearn 60, 70 years of television behavior. People like that guide. They like to be able to surf and find what they want in a format that they understand. And we've actually switched a lot of our UIs on our owned and operated properties to have more of a simplified guide on now up next sort of UI, but it's still in that kind of linear grid.
Yeah, we also spent a lot of time tweaking user experience, and I'll admit that this is one area where we kind of misjudged our approach initially. We sort of de-emphasized the linear programming guide in the initial launch of Philo, and I think that we heard resoundingly that people really wanted it. And I think that once you sort of take a step back, it makes a lot of sense. Like you're saying, people have these decades of built-in kind of expectations about how they navigate TV, and people don't want to spend a lot of time fiddling with the UI or learning something new when they're sitting down to watch TV. They want to get to the content they want to watch and start watching it. And so, giving them something that's familiar, especially in this kind of transition stage where people are changing from traditional TV to a virtual operator like ours, they're already learning a lot of new things and figuring out, how does this work differently than what I know? Making it simpler for them by giving them interfaces that they're familiar with, I think is really important. I think over time you'll start to see more innovation in the UI because when you get right down to it, we still believe that the EPG is not really the best way to navigate the content. It hides a lot of the functionality and availability of content that we offer. For example, on Philo, you can watch anything that's aired in the past 72 hours, but almost all EPGs in existence start from now and go forward. So, there's all this content that you're basically never seeing if you're using EPG as you commonly have used it, and that's not ideal in terms of surfacing people what they might be most interested in watching. So I think you will see it start to change over time, but certainly for a good period of time during this sort of transitional period, it's really important because it's so familiar to people.
I think for viewers and principal, we did focus on ensuring that consumers can get to the content they wanted most quickly. And so our home screen largely is focused on that, the trending live or the DVR content. But we did actually launch with a guide, and we were surprised to see a disproportionate number of users actually still use it. It's a double-digit percentage of people that use the guide. And it is an interesting vantage point that was we launched with a guide that actually can go with reverse. They call it reverse EPG in Europe. And so you can actually go back a week. Basically, you give me the guide from last Sunday, and you can do that. And to this point, a lot of us as virtual DVDs have content rights that allow you to look back in time. And so often you sort of say, hey, I was traveling Sunday, but I really missed Sunday programming. You go back and create much of that same experience with whether it's a DVR or on-demand rights we have on our programs.
For us, we launched in 2015 with no traditional guide. We added our traditional guide in 2017 based on user feedback. So for us, it was just about listening to customers. It is one of the #1 features still used today. I do believe the further we advance, we call it My TV, but that's our home screen landing page. The more advancements we make there, hopefully we can cannibalize some of that usage because the experience, the personalization becomes so much better that you don't rely on that guide. But it is a really nice transition from traditional TV to virtual space.
I think it's also the functionality of the equipment, right? A remote is not a great tool for jumping around and selecting things on the TV, but it's really good at going up and down a guide, right? So you have some manufacturers like LG that have a magic remote that sort of turns the entire screen into a clickable screen, but for the most part, they're pretty clunky devices.
Yeah, there's a bit of a chicken and egg thing going on where the interface methods for televisions have been very poor. You generally, on a connected TV device, have like an up, down, left, right, OK button and a menu button, and maybe like a play, pause, fast forward, rewind button, but it's a pretty poor interface compared to a phone or a computer or an iPad where you can richly interact with the whole screen. And I think that will also change, that the input methods, that was built out of the fact that TV itself was pretty limited. It was this one-way medium with just like, a set lineup of channels. And I think that as, streaming services bring greater options for functionality, things like social functionality and interaction and other things to the service, that the input methods will get more rich.
So it seems like what you guys are saying is the best way to attract new customers is to make it more like what they're familiar with, so make it more like TV. We have the channel guides. Ad-supported content is the same thing as watching traditional TV. And then I'm just thinking about, we're about to see the launch of Quibi, which is 20-minute high-quality content, but an exact episode of TV is 23 minutes, so it's pretty much the same concept. Is that the best way to attract new customers, to make it more like what they're familiar to?
Yeah, I think that our view is that there's a lot of change happening in television, but the major content programmers are incredibly good at creating long-form narrative content. They're, in fact, you can argue, I think pretty reasonably, that TV has never been more compelling. So it's not really an issue with the content. It's more how you're delivering it, how you're pricing it to consumers, how they're paying for it, whether they're locked into contracts, what devices they can use, that all the other experiential aspects of television. People love, we often say people love TV. They often hate the way they get it. They hate Comcast, they hate AT&T, but they love the content. They love the experience of television. They watch TV. The average person 4 to 5 hours a day, which is literally more time than people spend doing almost anything else. So it's about fixing the aspects of the experience that are broken. But fundamentally, it's not like, TV is one of the most successful consumer products, if not the most successful consumer product that humans have ever created. So, there's a lot that works really well there that you shouldn't try to reinvent the wheel on. But there's a lot that's really frustrating that you can improve because, TV has sort of been stuck in a certain way of doing things for so long that, it hasn't really kept up with the pace of what consumers are asking for from the experience.
And it's really about discovery as well, right? The content is great, but if you don't know how to get it, where to find it, or if every time you come into experience, you start someplace else, or you start at the local news but you hate local news, that's a terrible experience, and then you get frustrated with the experience, and you can't find the stuff you want. So I think the benefit of services like these guys and like Zumo is that you have the ability to play with the UIs, to customize, to personalize, and make sure that people are finding the stuff that they want to watch in a scene of choice.
So, wanted to open the floor up for any questions if anyone had anything from the crowd. I think they're going to run some microphones up, so if you just want to line up in the center aisle, I think that might be the best way.
Hi, thanks very much. For those of you that are involved in AVOD, you've been talking about, and it looks like a lot of people in the room are willing to put up with some advertising for a decrease in fees. I'm curious, how do you convince the advertisers to spend the additional money it takes to create these personalizations or additional versions of spots? Because it would be a significant increase in cost for that.
For us, we have a lot of different packages. We have a lot of different, an entire tool set for sponsors and advertisers. It's not just about the regular 30-second or the 15-second or the 6-second ad. Because we control the UIs, because we control the product in the ways that we do, we have different overlays. We can load block channels for a sponsored channel. We can, make sure that there's a pre-roll that you hit every time you hit that channel. We've done some takeovers where it's sort of the first impression people see is for a premiere that night or a tune-in campaign, so that anytime any new user tunes in, they're getting that first impression they see is that advertiser. So there's a lot of different things that make it compelling for an advertiser that are not heavy lifts for them. And then the other thing is that it is the premium screen, right? It's the living room screen, and those CPMs aren't different than TV. Just because it's virtual, you're still having a non-skippable, nearly 100% completion rates, and it's a premium environment.
I had a question on, I think Zumo was one of the platforms that launched as a paid service and then made the transition to a successful AVOD service. So how easy was that transition? And what message does that say the paid users are getting premium content? And was there disruption in business? And what was the message to the advertisers that you let them know?
Well, if you go back to the history of Zumo, we actually ran around town and collected all the rate cards to be a virtual MVPD and then decided we'd be out of business. So we didn't launch as a paid TV service, and we didn't launch SVOD as well. We do evaluate that, including having sort of add-ons or sort of the Amazon subscription channels and that sort of stuff, that kind of model. We probably evaluate that once or twice a year. Right now, as Andrew said, the trend is really in this AVOD free streaming space, and so we've doubled down on that. We're a small team. We want to concentrate our resources where we're really, really good. Not to say we won't do it in the future, but right now it's completely ad-supported.
Any other questions from the crowd?
Hi. Thoughts on impact of 5G when it is available at scale for people to genuinely 100% cut the cord with their cable provider or their telco and use 5G for home broadband?
Yeah, I think that our view on this is that, cutting the cord, people talk about how it's a bit of a misnomer. It's really just about how, as a consumer, you're getting different services. And, I think that what the trend is unambiguously is that people need internet access through some method, and I don't know that, honestly, consumers really care that much whether it's wired or wireless. It's more, assuming other aspects are equal, like price and other things. But I do believe that the trend is that whereas before you would get it all as one bundle, that will start to be less the case going forward. You don't buy your music subscription from your ISP. I don't think you necessarily in the future will always buy your TV subscription from your ISP. You might or you might not. And so I think that trend will definitely continue, where people who are providing connectivity will need to evolve to be more of a platform that other services can build on top of. I do think there are some ways in which 5G can be transformative. It is still quite difficult to set up, to just get set up with, all these different services you want to use, like a service like ours. I actually think that is the greatest barrier to adoption of virtual TV services is that it's still pretty complicated. You have to figure out, okay, well, I still need to get my internet, and what kind of Wi-Fi router do I need to make that work? And does it cover my entire house? And then what box do I get? Do I get an Apple TV or a Fire TV or a Roku or an Android TV, or does my smart TV already work? And then, but maybe it's old and slow, and so do I need to get a new TV? And then which virtual MVPDs do I want? Do I want Philo, or do I want View, or do I want some combination of them? It's really confusing to people. The one thing that cable is really great at is the fact that, and credit where credit's due, it takes them a long time to come to your house to get that truck out there, and it's like a long window where you have to sit around waiting for them. But when they get there, they set everything up, and they leave, and you press the power button on your remote, and the TV comes on, and it's playing content. And that experience of instant on is totally underappreciated. It is so amazingly powerful for enabling mass market adoption of these services. And I think 5G does potentially bring some abilities to simplify the sort of setup process and be able to give people devices that allow them to get up and running much more quickly and easily. So I think that we're interested in seeing that development play out.
I think we're quite keen and optimistic about the 5G space as well, because one of the biggest friction points for adoption of virtual MVPD today is having to bring your own broadband. And the majority of the 80 million households that still rely on an incumbent MVPD are getting broadband from their MSO or from the cable company. And generally that's the only choice they really have. So when 5G comes into these markets and they now have a choice, we think that's going to make it a lot easier for consumers to switch over and also adopt the virtual MVPD. And I also think the competition will bring down prices. If you look at a lot of European countries like the UK, for example, you can get broadband for 10 to 20 quid. I mean, it's much cheaper than it is here in the US, because there's choice. There's multiple providers in the local market. So we see that actually helping bring down the broadband price, giving consumers choice there, which then I think will help accelerate the adoption of virtual MVPDs.
For Sling.
Yeah, I mean, at Dish and Sling, obviously, we're very focused on 5G. We are transforming into a connectivity company that's trying to change the way the world communicates. And that has to do with providing more choice for the users, but it also has to do with going to underserved markets and getting the quality of bandwidth that you need to stream television in spaces that you can't do that today. And we still have some gaps to that in the United States. So for us, Charlie's leading those day-to-day efforts, and myself and our entire company are really excited about what the future holds for us.
Can you share any projections or research that would give a sense of, say, 5 years in the future, what percentage of viewing will be AVOD services, and then what percentage will be VMPDs in the future?
I don't know if I can give a breakdown of projection. I think they can coexist. I also think, we talk about virtual MVPDs and MVPDs and the rise of these guys. I don't think in the future you're going to have 20 more 4-letter virtual MVPDs and in a vowel. Fubo, Vilo, but all of the MVPDs are starting to deliver over IP. So how you define virtual is sort of the question there. I do think that they can coexist. I do think it comes down to consumer choice on price as well. And as ad-supported rises and as the advertising can start covering the costs of some of the super premium, league rights or Game of Thrones type content, you could see a shift there. But I do think they can also coexist.
It comes down to not so much of content because I think the sports viewing and news viewing I think will largely remain in a subscription model, which also is ad supported. Just if you just look at the contracts for whether it's the NBA games or those Olympic rights, those are out until the 2032 area. So I think sports viewing will largely stay in the pay TV bundle. I think things in the genres in terms of a drama or reality, scripted content. I think more and more of that will shift. I think for the AVOD space, particularly with big media companies like Viacom investing in Pluto and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what is, to me, very clear and inevitable is that TV will be delivered through streaming technology. Now, who is actually the one distributing it and who kind of builds the greatest base of consumers? That's a harder question to answer because, again, as you're saying, traditional MVPDs are moving in that direction as well. I do think that all of the estimates for how quickly these trends will play out have generally been pessimistic to date, so that's probably a good judge is that people generally, I think, under anticipate how quickly these transformations will happen, especially, again, I think once you can solve some of the barriers that currently exist for people adopting services like ours, the benefits are really clear and you can see the transformation pick up steam quite rapidly.
So I want to ask one last question. In 10 years, where do you think the virtual MVPD market will be?
And so, from our perspective, there's no reason why people would remain with an incumbent at this point. But again, it's a better value, it's a better experience, and why some of the incumbents are making plays to try to catch up. There just really isn't a reason to stay there, assuming you can bring your own broadband. So again, back to the first point of broadband. So, I do think that overall pay TV, landscape will continue to shrink. I mean, as you pointed out, it shrunk 5% last quarter, year-on-year. But that said, I do think in 10 years' time, you'll have more pay TV subscribers in the virtual space than what we consider the traditional MVPD space.
Yeah. I think from my perspective, you're going to see a lot of new entrants still continue to enter the market. Then I think you're going to see that suppressed, and you'll see some larger, more successful ones that have been a little bit more customer-centric rise to the top. At that point, from our perspective, I think I've always viewed Sling as a piece of the puzzle. So there's a lot of great services out there, and customers may use Sling for one thing. They may also use Xumo. It's not an either or. It's a lot of times it's a both. It's using Sling along with Netflix, other direct-to-consumer apps. For us, it's even using Sling along with an over-the-air antenna to get channels that are free over the air, as opposed to us recharging for those channels. So to me, that's kind of where we end up, in addition to the continued evolution of more people into the space.
Yeah, I mean, I think that coax cable was a superior distribution technology to broadcast. I think it's pretty unquestionable that the internet is a superior distribution technology to coax cable, and the advantages only accrue over time. So, again, it's in 10 years, I think that getting your TV through a facilities-based, distribution system where you have like a clunky box connected to the wall will probably be, by far the minority will be very antiquated and strange. The vast majority of people will get their television over the internet through a service that operates, largely as fiber does today.
I think that there will be some consolidation as well, right? There's going to be people that try to come in and people that leave and people that get bought. That's the way it always goes, and there's that trend that happens. And on the ad-supported side, I think you're just going to continue to see that rise based on the stuff that we talked about today, just based on the fact that the content is getting better, the content offerings are getting better. We talked a lot about sports. We actually have live PGA Tour, live college basketball. That's all ad-supported through different channels. We have the first PGA Tour direct-to-consumer ad-supported branded channel. And so I think you're going to see that content continue and those content providers continue to try to find the eyeballs where the eyeballs are, because that's what makes ad-supported work. And so you'll see a rise of the sort of free services while everybody else is kind of competing and consolidating around price.
Well, thanks so much for joining us here this morning. Have a great day.